the revision. So remember, I think I forgot to add Patricia Grace last time, and then I added it because by mistake it was deleted when I cut and paste from the syllabus. I don't know what happened. Let's talk about the themes that you have in all of them. Basically, the connections between them. Okay, who can tell me what we have? For example, in And So I Go, the first major theme that we have in all of them would be love of nature. Okay, the closeness to nature, the oneness with nature, and this is what we call the ecological self. Being one with nature, you have it basically in cities without farms, his closeness to nature, his closeness to the palm trees. Even the novel is called Cities Without Farms. In a handful of dates, you have the closeness also to the dates, remember with Mas'ud. And in contrast to the grandfather who's disillusioned, the grandfather who is basically materialistic, he doesn't care about nature as such. And then 31 beautiful green trees. Whatever destroys nature would also destroy her. In 31 beautiful green trees, remember when she talked about her nervous breakdown, when she sees that the trees were cut, even when she wants to marry somebody, she wants it to be somebody who is close to nature, who would live in nature, who would care about flowers and all of that. Even the day that she had would be on the river, on the river bank, and then so the closeness to nature. And so I go, basically the closeness to nature is extreme. You have also oneness between the protagonist, the community, the family, and nature. And remember, in the second part of the reading, where he wants to leave, he says even goodbye. He says goodbye to the land, to the hills, and to the sea, and asking on all these natural elements to protect his family. So the closeness to nature, the oneness with nature, what we call the ecological self. People are all part of one. Okay. Another theme would be modernity versus tradition. You have modernity versus tradition, which is, where do we see modernity and tradition? In what reading do we see modernity and tradition? You have in So I Go.
Handful of dates? Oh, no.
Yeah. In So I Go, where he wants to leave the village, learn new ways, go to the city, and come back and teach his people about new ways. So basically, the traditional way of life. So you have, let me type it. Tradition versus modernity. You also have Tariq al-Tayyib in Cities Without Farms later in the other parts of the novel, where he basically, what will happen, he would know about different ways of life, modern ways of life, So the cross-cultural encounter, or basically the alienation when you go to another country. You see the alienation basically in So I Go, where they tell him, will people know your identity? Will a woman call you by your name? And also you will have loneliness. The loneliness of living in a new place, and because of the big estrangement, in contrast to be feeling comfortable at home in the place where he was brought up. And you also have it's locked. Okay. You also have modernity versus tradition. You have the theme of alienation. You have various kinds of alienations in the reading. You have also alienation, so in Patricia Grace, and So I Go, alienation of going to another place. You have alienation in Cities Without Farm when he travels to Europe. You have alienation in Tayyib Saleh in a handful of days, the alienation from his grandfather. At the beginning, he idealized him, but then he realized that the grandfather is somebody who's materialistic. And in Salwa Bakr, it's full of alienation because she's a woman. So you have various kinds of alienation and various reasons for alienations. You have family relationship in all of them. Closeness to the family and nature in So I Go. Closeness to the mother and to the two sisters in Cities Without Bonds. Alienation from the father. In Tayyib Saleh, a handful of days, you have the closeness to basically to the grandfather at the beginning, but then later on you have alienation from the grandfather. And he even discussed when he goes, he realizes that the grandfather is somebody who's materialistic and he goes up to date. Alienation in Salwa Bakr when it comes to at work, she's alienated from them, she's different, she's sensitive, she's unlike other people, and people do not understand her, even alienated from other women, from her family, basically because, you remember the mother would always side with the brother when he broke the vase, and then she told the father, and then the mother wanted to punish her by cutting her tongue. So the alienation is extreme in Salwa Bakr to the point where she becomes insane or she's accused of being insane. The family relationship in the Indian story, The Grass Eater, is a very good family relation despite their poverty between the wife and the husband, and then despite the negative conditions, they are close, they're satisfied with life, and then they are living happily despite poverty, despite the fact that they have no eating grass. What are the vices of human nature that we see? So the theme of virtue versus vice. Virtue versus vice. What kind of virtue we see in So I Go, the closeness to the family bond. The vice in Tariq Tayyib. Where do we see the vice in Tariq Tayyib? In the novel, the father, somebody who doesn't take care of his family, somebody who abandons his family. He leaves a wife and 3 children, a young man and 2 daughters. Basically the vice of the sheikh at the beginning of the novel, where the sheikh would do what? Basically would beat up the child and then he's not close to people. He became a sheikh only out of necessity because he paid dates. What kind of vice do we have?
The grandfather being dates to Masoud.
Yeah, greed, materialism, wanting more money, instead of as an old man thinking about his end, thinking about the future life in heaven and being close to God, he wants more property, more stuff. So in contrast to thinking in a spiritual manner, he's thinking about acquiring more and more and more land. In the vices of human nature in Bakr are related to the patriarchal system. How women are always what? Are always dehumanized, belittled, oppressed, silenced. So again, in a society that oppresses women, in a society that does not appreciate nature, in a society where women are thought of insane, so are not taken seriously. So these are some of the vices of the patriarchal system. In Burma, we don't have, in Krishna and Varna, we don't have any vices of human nature except basically breaking stuff, doing stuff, and then a man stabbing another man, a woman throwing her baby in a garbage can because of poverty. And the theme of poverty, we have it in Cities Without Farms and the themes and Grass Eaters, and the way basically they adapt to poverty and the way they would survive poverty. In Tariq resources, in Krishna Verma, the Grass Eaters, what do we have? He adapts to poverty. They're wearing less clothes, they're eating less, So there is something common between Tariq Tayyib and the grass Eaters. What else? other themes do we have? Innocence versus innocence and experience. A passage from
Or coming of age or something like that.
yes. Okay. Innocence. We don't see innocence in So I Go. We see the depiction of innocence, some innocence of children. Basically, in Tariq al-Tayyib, do we see innocence to experience? We see it in the other parts of the novel. Basically, when he becomes more experienced, he learns about new ways in life. When he goes to Europe, when he sees, the cross-cultural encounter, sometimes he's alienated, sometimes he adapts. Sometimes, basically, the alienation would be when they make fun of him, they make fun of his language. Innocence, Salwa Bakr, maybe in the woman, the narrator, people will understand how she feels towards nature. Maybe that's innocent. In a handful of days, the child passage from innocence to experience. In what way? In the sense that at the beginning he was so innocent to idealize his grandfather, but actually what will happen? He becomes experienced. He throws up the date. He's disillusioned with the grandfather. And then because he realizes that the grandfather is not such a good person, that the grandfather is greedy and materialistic. Innocence, yeah.
So we can say that the sub-theme could be illusion versus reality when it comes to the narrator's feelings towards the grandfather.
Yes, the idealization versus reality, the ideal versus the real. It's an irony. The clash between how the grandfather appeared to him at the beginning and the reality of the grandfather. So you have an element of irony in the story. Okay, the element of irony. And basically, the element of irony. Now, in the Grass Eaters, the innocence to experience, for us, the reader, basically we imagine him to be what kind of person? Somebody who's naive, somebody who's innocent, somebody who would accept the way things are without really, we say how naive he is, basically to accept these negative conditions of life. But we realize that he is not naive. He has experience in life, but it's a coping mechanism. It's a way of coping, with the poverty that he's experiencing. And because we see it at the end of the reading when he talks about when the tone of the reading would change, when the tone of the narration of his life story would change at the end, when he said, I see a man, we left content, looking from far, seeing a man stabbing another man, a woman throwing her baby in a garbage bin. And remember, I mentioned Voltaire Candide. Voltaire Candide, when he sees all the evils of the world, what would happen at the end? He realizes that this is not the best possible world, but the only solution would be, what kind of solution? The solution would be to cultivate his own garden, to live his life, not regarding, without, taking into consideration what happens to other people externally, but to be content with what he has. Remember, I mentioned cultivate your own garden, a theme that was given by Voltaire Candide, and it's the same kind of ending in the story in the Grass Eaters. The elements of nature are all important, and So I Go. The river, the land, Mother Earth, and the sea. Tariq al-Tayyib, the palm trees. Tayyib Saleh, the dates. Basically, the dates would be quite important, the importance of the dates, and then be careful, Mas'ud says, not to cut the words of the palm tree. The Grass Eaters, we don't see closeness to nature, but basically eating grass, but it's not, we don't see this natural element, and it's not related to nature. Any other comment or any other theme that you can think of? What else?
There's rejection, or maybe like injustice.
In which readings?
A handful of dates and the Grass Eaters.
In the grass, injustice, why in the Grass Eaters?
Like you can see, like I don't know if we can't do that, but we can talk about how the way they're living is just unbearable, and it's just like it shows that they have lack of human rights in a sense.
Okay, yes, and then we have the class system in India. The difference between the poor and the rich. There is a huge difference in the way people would live. And the injustice also in Salwa Bakr, the way the woman is treated, the injustice with Mas'ud, the way the grandfather deals with the death and all of that, the injustice in Tariq Tayyib, basically when the father abandons his wife and 3 small children. And so I go, there is no injustice. Basically, it's just feel the strong bond between people. Okay, good. What else? Any other concept? No, that's it? Okay, I want to tell you about the final. Please don't take any chances by studying half of the material. You never know what kind of combination you may have. You may have more than 2 stories, maybe 3 or 4, depending on the question I will ask. And remember, the bonus question is on cities without farms. It has to be a good answer to get the bonus. If it is just, generalities, you will not get the bonus, or you get some partial points. And then be careful about writing a good thesis statement, topic sentences, organized, coherence, no run-on sentences, joining sentences with the comma, and all of that. So I'm going to be very strict when it comes to, not very strict, but even more strict than before, than with the grading of the final, because that would be your 3rd attempt. By now, you should know how to write a good essay, how to organize it, and then please don't copy from the internet notes. Don't give me some the way you write. What else? Try to make your best, and then please, one more thing, don't count on, if you have a pass, no pass, to write anything, and then that automatically you will pass it. I don't want people to take any chances, even if I'm not trying to scare you, but I don't want you to end up having, a negative, unpleasant surprises, because it happened with many teachers at the end of the semester. Some students took it for granted that it's a pass, no pass, I will not study, I will barely write anything on the final, I will pass. And actually, this will not happen. So please, even if it is a pass, no pass option, take the final seriously. Do your best, because you cannot count on just passing just like that. Okay, you have to write a good essay. I've tried my best to make it interesting to you. It was like it was bad that we had to teach online throughout the semester, but I tried my best to make it interesting, to choose interesting readings, to read the module, to be lenient if you don't read. I have a clear conscience. I've done my best. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it, and there is nothing else I can say. Okay, any question?
Doctor, are we gonna have like 2 questions in the exam?
You have no choice in the exam, because the readings, usually when we give choice, is the readings are, more readings, longer readings, and usually we cover more material.
Yeah, I mean
okay?
يعني قصدي إنه المين questions اللي هنا 1 question أو 2.
One question will bonus question, 1 essay without any choice, because with these essays you can develop it the way you want. So inherent in the question, you would have the option of how to analyze the text.
Doctor, ونحن we're gonna have 1 hour or 2 hours for exam?
2 hours. 2 hours.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. If you have no other comment, you can leave.
Doctor,
there is no class. Okay, I will be there if you need me, but I will not have any class because I have nothing to say.
اوكي دكتور، بس الاكزام هالمرة يعني رح يكون أصعب من usually، كيف بيكون؟
لا بس in the way I grade it, I will be more careful about stuff. Keep on repeating the run-on sentences. If you don't write an organized essay, I was very generous with the grading. I will not be so generous on the final. So please, I'm not telling you this to scare you or but I want you to take it seriously. This is why. مش إنه يلا I would write in a hasty manner and then finish.
Yeah, I understand دكتور بس يعني مش إنه تقشط علامتنا كتير يعني آخر السمستر.
Yeah, بس إنه you have to know the material. لأنه you know I'm telling you this because I've known it from experience. I've been teaching at LEU for 28 years. You know, some people do so much better on the final. Some people count on test 1 and test 2 and don't study for the final. I don't want this to happen. This is why okay, this is my aim, you know, to take for you to take it seriously on the final. مش إنه يلا خلص دبر حالي بالفاينل without studying. No. Okay?
Yes, okay.
طيب.
Okay, thank you, doctor. Bye bye.
You're most welcome.
Thank you, doctor.
You're most welcome.